So there's a couple things I want to talk about today, moving things forward. And the first thing is I want to talk about your arms again, to drill down a little bit more on, what our goal is. Because I've been looking at a lot of video and analyzing stuff, and it's more clear for me to what the issue is and what we're really trying to fix, okay? So when the thing that, assuming that you're not, running with your arms down here again, and that you're using your weights or whatever, and you're getting the hang of, running in this space, okay? Still, in terms of sprinting, the thing that we really need to get out of you, and I'll show you video because you pretty much never do it, is that advancing arm, that advancing elbow needs to clear your torso, right? So there should be some space between your torso and your elbow. So for you, what happens is your arm comes from back here, and normally it goes here, and then it goes here. And so your elbow never goes forward, right? And I think with the weights, it started to make that happen, and that's probably why you got really sore, because, for me to hold this weight here is one thing. For me to get out here activates a whole lot of stuff, in my obliques and on my abs and everything, right? So I'll show you, but you tend, you've always tended to get the elbow about right, even with your torso, and then this hand just collapses while this arm goes back. So in essence, you're kind of doing that, right? You kind of, instead of everything going forward, you're kind of pushing everything back like this, right? Rather than letting the elbow come up and forward like this. So this is really what we need you to start to get a feel for in all of your sprinting, is that elbow goes past your torso and gets up into this area, right? Because that's what normal sprinting should do. Otherwise, you're really just kind of running on with like backside. You're never really using the front side of the sprint cycle, right? You're not really activating that. So when you're sprinting, it's like your leg is pushing forward at the same time that your arms are pushing backwards like this, right? Instead of everything, your arms and your legs all moving everything forward, okay? So start to work on that. Well, start to think about that anyway. As you're holding your weights and working with them, that, we want, I had said before, we kind of want you to feel like you're a boxer and up here. So, if I got my hands kind of up here, you see my elbows are clearing. I'm not running with everything kind of like down here or back here, and then at most they come here, and then they just collapse up. So to you, you might feel like you're doing this, but all you're really doing is that. It's sort of like you're cheating it, right? And in cheating it, again, you're cheating yourself of the forward thrust and everything that you would get by continuing to move that elbow forward. And I'll show you some video later of what you're doing. And then we'll look at Grant Holloway, because even as long and lanky and wiry as he is, when he's sprinting the 60 meters, he's like this, right? And then when he's between the hurdles, he's like this. It's smaller, but it's never like all down in here, right? So that's one thing you can work on. Now, the other thing you need to start doing is, up until now, as far as I can tell, you're basically three-stepping between the hurdles. And so now it's time to amp that up and go to a full four-step approach, right, in between the hurdles. But even more than that, I'm going to advance it even more and say it's not a four-step. It's 4 steps plus 1 beat. So we're going to call it a 5-beat, right? And we kind of talked about this before when you were here. But between the hurdles, you're coming off the hurdle. So this is my lead leg landing. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 being the drive up. So it's 4 down and 1 up, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? 4 down and 1 up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's basically, that's the rhythm that you want to have between the hurdles. Ba 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 ba. Okay, because at best, what I'm seeing right now is a 3-step. But even if it was a 4-step, we don't want 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And taking off on 4 because we want 4 to be another running step. So it's run, 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 and hurdle, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm going to send you, this simple little metronome thing, but it's counting instead of clicking, right? So it's this. I'll play it, and I'll send it to you.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
So basically,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2.
So there's your drill. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I want you to start putting in some time on your own. Just, marching up and down the track, rehearsing this rhythm so that it gets locked in, so that you really do learn to separate 4 from 5, which will allow you to run through 4 more instead of, taking off too early. Because if you're taking off on 4, then you're setting up for it on 3, right? That's the way it works. If you're taking off on 5, then you're going to go through 3 in a way that you don't usually do right now, and then you'll go through 4, right? So it's just the way the rhythm is going to work. So that's what we're going to work on starting now, because now we need to take the speed that you have and amp it up rhythm-wise. Right now it's just been sort of, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. And now we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And that rhythm is going to feel really nice to you once you get a little bit more familiar to it. And it'll flatten you out going through the hurdle, and it'll just make everything time up a little bit better. Remembering that, when we attack the hurdle, we're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And we want to be driving that knee up. We don't want to be extending our foot or anything too soon. We just want to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, boom. And that'll just take you right on through, okay? So that's where we are right now. Let's continue to work on the arms, but let's bring into it, trying to be more conscious of getting that elbow in front of the torso. And that's going to give you something that you haven't had, which is a lot more power on the front side. It's almost like you've just been running with like half of the cycle, right? And now you're bringing the other half of the cycle into it. So that should give you a lot more to work with sprint-wise. So work on that. Let's focus on, just keeping the weights. That'll keep your arms short. So you don't have to think about keeping them short as long as you got the weights. But now let's think about getting those elbows forward more, right? Forward of the torso. And when you're in between the hurdles, then because you're running with your elbows coming forward of the torso, so this would be my 3rd step. Normally your 3rd step, you go here, and then it kind of goes here, right? And then you go into the hurdle like that. Well, if I'm used to doing this, then my 3rd step is going to be here, and my 4th step is going to run through. So everything is going to stay more sprint-like, right? Rather than you shutting things down. It's almost like you're running and then you shut things down. Run and shut it down, right? We want to just run through it, right? Okay, so that's kind of where you need to start putting a little bit of your extra quality time into, okay? Get this 5-step, 5-beat, 4 steps, so 5 beats. So we'll call it a 5-beat rhythm. Let's just lock that guy in. That's going to really help you get the turnover going between the hurdles and really help you just get a feel for running between the hurdles better. That will be less work. And then if you add better arm action to that, tighter arms and bring the elbows, more forward, which is where they should be anyway, then everything is gonna pick up, and you're gonna find yourself just slicing through the hurdle, much like you do when you're here. Because I was looking at videos, and when we're here working, you tended, now we weren't running as fast or anything, but you tended to run with your hands more up here and then hurdle. You didn't run with things more like in here, right? You would run with your hands more like here, and then you get there and then you hurdle. So you were keeping things more in this place anyway when you're here, and so then you would go through the hurdle differently. But when you're running up to the hurdle like this and then coming into it like that and then trying to get a takeoff, it's just, everything is kind of out of whack. Okay, so let's just keep cleaning it up, and I think you'll start to notice a difference, especially once that 5-beat rhythm starts to really lock. Yeah, I forgot one thing, and one other thing about doing that 5-beat rhythm is the purpose of that is not really to set up your running rhythm between the hurdles. It's really more to set up that space between 4 and 5, right? So you can get that feel for stepping down on 4 and knee driving up on 5, right? So because it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And actually, if you were actually coming off the hurdle, we would want it to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But I didn't put that kind of a rhythm together, so I want you to understand that I don't want you coming off the hurdle going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I want you to come, your hurdle rhythm should be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2. We want that quick trail leg coming through on that first step off the hurdle. Okay, so let's look at a video of what I was just talking about in terms of your arms. Okay, so this is the video Andrea sent me last week or a couple weeks ago of you running your BPM runs, and I mean, you were tearing it up. You got up to 150, which is pretty awesome. But I mean, Andreas and I both know that you could run faster than that, and I think this issue has something to do with it, right? So here you go, toe off, mid-flight, and you can see we're just going to look at your left arm, the one that's facing us, right? So it drives forward, right? It's more open than we would like it, but you had been working on the bands with the shoe, and so it's better. So you're coming in and it's better than it used to be, right? And so up to here, we're not too bad. It could be a little bit tighter, but we're not too bad considering what it used to be. But now at this point, your arm is, if we're just looking at from the elbow up to the shoulder, we can see that it's swinging forward, right? So we're just looking at this much of your arm. We're not looking below the elbow, right? So we can see that it's swinging forward from, it started back here and it's swinging forward. Boom. All good. Okay, we get to here and then it stops, right? It just like totally stops. And from there, the only thing that happens from there is your hand keeps coming back at you. So see, your elbow never goes past your torso, right? The other one is driving back. So in essence, you have your right arm, this hand driving backwards. Let's use an arrow tool. So we got this one driving backwards, and then we got this hand driving backwards too, right? While your hips are pushing forward. So it's kind of like we got this thing going on that's sort of counterproductive, right? And what we want is your hips pushing forward and then your arms, driving forward too, but that's not what happens here, right? And so that kind of restricts your ability to produce as much force as you could. And because this has kind of always been your habit, it's just been worse, Now imagine if your arm was straight here, so right now it's bent. Before this arm would almost be straight and then bending from the elbow straight up from there. But either way, it would end up in the same position, not having had the actual shoulder, the upper arm rotating forward like that, which is what we want. We need that guy to come forward, okay? So you can clearly see what's happening here. And so then if you go through the next one, You know, so because this elbow, I mean, your upper arm never went anywhere, then basically it just swings like in this range, right? From there to there. It never goes from back to forward to back. So that's why I say it's like you're only using like half of the ability, half of the cycle in a way, right? So we go into the next step, and you'll see, we'll never see that other hand. So if I take it back so we can see you coming before this step, you know, you'll never see your elbow clear your torso. So this is the previous step. We're going to go into it. Oh, the same thing is happening. So you see you're pushing off here, and you know your elbow never clears your body. We can't see it. Your arm is basically totally straight down beside you. And then you drive down, the other one's coming up, it gets to a certain point, and then it stops, right? It stops. So that's kind of what we need to try to get rid of as much as possible. So now, if we look at Aries running, then you'll see what I'm saying, you know, normal sprinting should do. So as he's coming in, you know, now you notice his arms are kind of almost at a 90 degree, and through this whole cycle, his arms all pretty much stay there. They never get straighter than that, you know. So and so that's the purpose of the weights, is to get you comfortable with your arms never straightening. But at the same time, if you see as he's pushing off, see his elbow clears his body, right? His elbow clears his body, so it's not just hanging down. So he's getting more push off, right? And then as we come through the next one, his elbow clears his torso. His elbow clears his torso always. Yours never does. So if you were him right now, you would your elbow would be hanging down, your arm would be hanging down here, and then your hand would just be collapsed really, really tight like that, right? And so that's kind of what we need to clear up now. You can see clearly, right? As a matter of fact, if you want to see it side by side, this will be even more interesting. So we'll look at you running and him, because this was when I was out there and I recorded both of you guys running. So we'll look at you and we'll look at him together. So as you're coming into the foot landing, your right hands are in the same place. Now for him, that left arm is more forward. Your left arm is just coming forward. So you can see almost like right away, you know, when you both land flat, see his left arm is way up in terms of where yours used to be. Now I think you're better than this. This was last year, so I think you've gotten better, but this just kind of shows you where you have tended to want to keep your arms. But even more so, as you both drive forward, you can see that your elbow never really clears your torso, whereas his does. And secondly, his right arm, the arm that's back, stays bent, and yours is kind of straightening out. And the straightening out isn't really the worst thing in the world. Some guys do that, so I'm not really freaking out about that. It's really more what's going on with the front arm. But as you can see, as you both push out of this, see how your hand, because you don't want your elbow to go any further forward, see how he's kind of driving forward, and then your hand keeps working back at you, like at this point here, right? It keeps working back at you because you don't want that elbow to go too far away from you. And then you both come back in and see he's landing, see where both his hands are? He has those weights in his hands, whereas, you know, if you got the weights in your hands, then at this point they're really, really heavy. So that's kind of what I was talking about in terms of downstairs and where you can definitely improve, because when you tighten up your hands, then and when you tighten up your hands and you allow that elbow to clear your body on the front side, you're going to get a lot more front side power, I guess is the best way to say it. And so let's take just a quick look at, you know, I was looking at some Grant Holloway video, and just like everybody else, you know, here's him coming off the first hurdle, right? So both elbows are bent, you know, both hands are forward. And then this would be his next step, right? So just like everybody else I've been showing you, you know, that advancing arm, you know, when that foot lands flat, it's bent, right? Here's another shot of his middle step. That advancing arm is bent. It's never going to be straight the way yours is, right? But also, this is what he looks like when he's sprinting. So this was when he was running the 60 meters, right? And see, if you were sprinting the 60 meters, your front elbow would never, ever get to that place. It would be down by your side. Even though the left elbow would be way back there where his is, the right elbow would still be down by your side. So this is what normal sprinting looks like, right? And so it's not just him, but pretty much everybody else that he was racing against, they may not beat him or be as fast, but that elbow, his in this race was far more advanced than anybody else's. And so I think that was one of the reasons he has more amplitude in his running. But everybody's elbow clears their torso, okay? This is what he looks like sprinting on when his foot lands. So if you're looking at him sprinting, you know, the 60-meter flat, then when his foot lands flat, it looks just like when he's hurdling and his foot lands flat. It's the exact same thing, because I mean he's basically sprinting the same. It's just the only thing that changes when he's hurdling is it's not this big of an amplitude, so everything just is smaller, but everything else is pretty much the same, right? You know, if you can imagine that, it's just, you know, his elbow is not going to come up that far, you know, but it's going to still basically be doing the same thing. And so that's just where you need to kind of like, you know, start to put a little time into, and I think, you know, it'll clean things up for you even more. And you know, we're getting close to time to start running some races, and so let's get that 5-beat rhythm together, and let's get these arms a little bit tighter, and let's get ready to start running some races and putting together some times.